Milo stood on the balcony of the Galactic Council building, looking at the stars that stretched endlessly across the sky. The planets and moons glimmered like tiny jewels scattered across the dark canvas of space. Milo loved the view, but tonight he did not feel the usual wonder. Instead, his heart felt heavy. His mother, Amara, was the leader of their planet. She had the wisdom of ages and the kindness of 1,000 hearts, but Milo could see the burden she carried every day. Since his father had passed when Milo was very young, Amara had worked tirelessly to protect their people and guide the planet through peace and conflict alike. Milo remembered nights when he would find her in her office, staring at holographic maps and reports, her face lined with worry. She never complained, but Milo knew her heart was lonely. Milo wanted to change that. He had thought about it for months. He had planned carefully, imagining every possible outcome. Tonight, he made his decision. He would ask the Galactic Council for help. He would ask them to find a partner for his mother, someone who could share her responsibilities and bring her happiness. Milo knew it sounded strange, but he could not ignore the feeling in his heart. His mother deserved companionship. She deserved someone she could trust and rely on. He wanted her to be happy, and he wanted the galaxy to have leaders who were strong together. Milo entered the large hall of the Galactic Council. The room was filled with representatives from hundreds of planets. They were all beings of different shapes and sizes. Some had long flowing robes, some had shimmering scales, and some had forms Milo had never seen before. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing: authority. Milo felt a little nervous as he approached the central platform, but he held his head high. The council president, a tall being with silver eyes, looked at Milo curiously. Milo cleared his throat and began. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, I am Milo, citizen of Viridia Prime. I have a request. My mother, Amara, is the leader of our planet. She is wise, just, and compassionate. She protects our people and guides them with great care. But she is lonely, and the weight of leadership is heavy. I ask you to help find a partner for her, someone who can share her responsibilities and support her in leading our world and the galaxy. The room went silent. Milo's words had stunned the council members. A few whispers floated through the air, but no one interrupted him. Milo took a deep breath and continued. I understand this request may be unusual, but my mother has given her life to the galaxy. She has protected countless worlds, and she continues to serve with all her heart. A partner who shares her vision and values will strengthen her, and together they can lead with wisdom and courage. I ask this for her happiness and for the good of the galaxy. A representative from a distant star system raised a tentacle. Milo, your words are noble, but finding a partner for a leader is not simple. How can we know who is worthy? How can we ensure they will work together? Milo smiled slightly. He had expected this question. The Council has knowledge of many capable beings across the galaxy. You know their history, their skills, and their character. I trust the Council's judgment to choose candidates who are not only strong and wise but also compassionate. I will leave the decision to your wisdom. The president nodded slowly, his silver eyes studying Milo. You speak with courage and care, young one. It is rare to see a child think so deeply about the well-being of their parent and the galaxy. Your request is unusual, but it is not impossible. The Council will consider your words. We will begin the search for a partner for your mother. Milo felt a spark of hope. He bowed respectfully. Thank you, honored council members. I only wish for my mother to be happy and for the galaxy to be led with strength and kindness. After Milo left the council hall, he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He knew that finding the right partner would not be easy. There were so many beings in the galaxy, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. But Milo also believed that someone worthy existed, someone who could understand his mother and work with her as equals. Back on Viridia Prime, Milo watched his mother from a distance as she worked late into the night. She reviewed reports from neighboring planets, made decisions about trade agreements, and resolved conflicts with calm authority. Milo admired her, not just as a leader but as a mother. He remembered the times she had comforted him when he was scared, the times she had encouraged him to follow his dreams, and the times she had been his guide when the world seemed uncertain. Milo wanted to give her the same gift she had always given him, hope. He wanted her to have someone by her side, someone who could share her burdens and offer her joy. He knew leadership could be lonely, but it did not have to be. The galaxy was vast, full of beings who were brave, wise, and kind. Milo believed that among them, the perfect partner for his mother existed. The next day, the Galactic Council began their search. Candidates from distant systems arrived on Viridia Prime for interviews. Milo watched as each one met his mother. Some were skilled warriors, capable of defending planets from attack. Some were diplomats, able to negotiate peace in times of conflict. Some were scholars, wise beyond measure and knowledgeable about the histories of countless worlds. Amara treated each candidate with respect. She asked questions, listened carefully, and considered their answers. Milo watched closely, searching for signs that someone could truly connect with his mother. But as the hours passed, he noticed that none seemed right. They were capable and strong, but they did not seem to understand her heart. They did not share the same vision of leadership, and they did not make her smile the way she deserved. Milo felt a little discouraged, but he did not give up. He believed that patience and hope were necessary. He knew the galaxy was vast, and the perfect partner might come from an unexpected place. Milo decided he would keep his eyes and heart open, ready to recognize the person who could bring happiness to his mother and strength to the galaxy. As the sun set over the twin moons of Viridia Prime, Milo stood once again on the balcony. He watched the stars, thinking about the journey ahead. He believed in the goodness of the galaxy, and he believed in his mother. One day, he thought, the right person would come, and together, they would lead the galaxy with wisdom, courage, and heart. Milo smiled. The adventure was only beginning, and he was ready to face it with hope. The days that followed were filled with excitement and curiosity across Viridia Prime. News of Milo's unusual request had spread throughout the Galactic Council and beyond. Many were surprised by the boldness of the young boy, but many also admired his courage. For a child to think not only of his mother's happiness but also of the galaxy's future was something rare. Amara herself was quiet about it. She did not scold Milo, nor did she laugh at his idea. Instead, she looked at her son with gentle eyes and said only, "You have a kind heart, Milo. But the galaxy does not choose partners the way we choose leaders. We must see what comes of this." Still, Milo could see that her curiosity was stirred. She did not reject the idea outright, which gave him hope. Soon, candidates began arriving on Viridia Prime. The council had sent invitations to many worlds, calling for leaders, scholars, and protectors who might stand beside Amara. The arrival of ships turned the capital city into a place of great wonder. Sleek vessels shimmered in the skies, some glowing with golden light, others shaped like great wings or spirals. Each ship carried someone important, someone who wished to meet the leader of Viridia Prime. Milo stood beside his mother as they welcomed the first visitors. The plaza outside the council building was full of banners and people. Music played softly as the first candidate descended from a tall silver ship. He was a warrior from the desert planet the Rose, tall and strong, his armor marked with scars of many battles. The warrior bowed to Amara. "I am Joran of the Rose. I have defended my people from storms and invaders. I can defend yours as well. Together, we can lead with strength." Amaro listened kindly, asking him about his vision for peace. But Milo noticed that Joran spoke mostly of war, of victories, and of battles yet to be fought. His mother listened politely, yet Milo knew her heart longed for balance, not endless conflict. The next candidate came from a world covered in oceans. Her name was Solari, a diplomat who spoke in calm tones like the flow of water. She promised harmony and understanding between species. She even brought gifts of pearls that shimmered like tiny moons. Amara smiled at Solari's kindness, but Milo noticed her eyes dim slightly as the conversation continued. Solari's words were beautiful, but they felt rehearsed, like a speech given too many times. The days went on, and more candidates arrived. A scholar from the ice planet Neros shared his vast knowledge of ancient civilizations. A merchant queen from the trade world Arian offered alliances that could make Viridia Prime wealthier than ever. A healer from the forests of Cavan spoke of compassion and service to the weak. Each one had qualities that impressed the council. Each one had strengths that could help lead. But Milo watched his mother carefully. He studied her expressions, her tone of voice, even the way she held her hands. None of the candidates seemed to reach her heart. She respected them, yes, but she did not seem moved by them. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Milo found his mother alone in the garden behind their home. The garden was quiet, filled with glowing flowers that opened only at night. Amara was seated on a stone bench, her face thoughtful. Milo approached slowly. "Mother," he said, "did none of them seem right to you?" Amara looked at him, her lips curving into a small smile. "You see too much, Milo. They are all good people, each in their own way. Strong, wise, or kind. But leadership is not only about skills. It is about trust, about sharing the same vision. That is harder to find." Milo sat beside her. "I thought it would be simple. I thought someone would come and you would know. But it is harder than I imagined." Amara placed her hand on his shoulder. "Life is not always simple, my son. Sometimes the right path reveals itself slowly. But do not lose hope. You reminded me that even leaders are human, that even I can wish for companionship. For that, I thank you." Her words comforted Milo, though he still felt a little sad. He wanted his mother to smile more, to feel the warmth she gave so freely to others. He wanted her to have someone who truly understood her. The next morning, the search continued. The council had prepared journeys to other planets, so Amara and Milo traveled to see more candidates. They visited the crystal towers of Lumerus, where a ruler offered the power of endless energy. They traveled to the storm world of Draxon, where a governor showed how he could command armies with a single word. Each place was grand, each candidate impressive, yet Milo still sensed the same emptiness in his mother's heart. She admired their strength, their wisdom, their skills, but admiration was not enough. A true partner needed something more, something that could not be measured in wealth, armies, or knowledge. During one journey, as their ship sailed through the quiet of space, Milo spoke again. "Mother, maybe we are looking in the wrong places. Maybe the one you need will not come with riches or power. Maybe they will come quietly, without grand words or promises. Amara turned to him, her eyes soft. Perhaps you are right, Milo. Sometimes the greatest strengths are hidden. Sometimes the ones who change the galaxy are not the ones who seek glory, but the ones who serve without asking for it. Her words stayed in Milo's mind long after. He began to wonder if the person they were searching for was someone they had not yet imagined, someone who did not come to the council with loud claims, but someone who lived by actions, not speeches. As the ship continued its journey, Milo looked at the stars and felt his heart steady again. The search was not over. The galaxy was vast, full of possibilities. And deep inside, Milo believed the right person was out there, waiting for the moment when fate would bring them together. The search had stretched on for many weeks. Ships had come and gone, carrying hopeful candidates from across the stars. Each one had brought something valuable, but none had brought the spark Milo was waiting for. Milo tried to stay patient, reminding himself of his own words. The right person would not always arrive with loud promises or shining treasures. Still, doubt sometimes whispered in his heart. What if no one was truly right for his mother? What if his dream of seeing her smile freely again was too much to hope for? One quiet morning, when the air above the capital was clear and the streets calm, a ship unlike the others appeared in the skies. It was not grand or decorated. It was not shaped like a crown or a blade, as so many council vessels were. Instead, it was plain and simple, painted in soft gray, carrying only the mark of a small colony. It moved gently through the atmosphere, as if asking permission rather than demanding attention. The guards at the landing platform were confused. They had not been told of another candidate arriving. Yet the ship descended anyway, and the hatch opened with a slow hiss. From inside stepped a man. He was human, like Milo and Amara. He wore no shining armor and carried no gifts. His clothes were simple, made for travel and work, not display. His face carried calm lines, and his eyes were steady, neither proud nor timid. "I am Terran," he said, bowing respectfully to the guards. "I heard of the search. I do not come to claim glory, but to offer what I can. If the leader of Viridia Prime will see me, I wish to serve." The guards exchanged uncertain looks, but the sincerity in his voice was clear. Soon word reached Amara, and curiosity touched her heart. She had seen warriors, diplomats, rulers, and scholars, each eager to show their greatness. Now here was a man who asked for nothing, who came without fanfare. She agreed to meet him. Milo stood beside his mother as Terran was led into the council chamber. He studied the man carefully. There was nothing loud about him, yet something about the way he carried himself caught Milo's attention. Terran walked with quiet confidence, like someone who had seen much of the galaxy and learned from it, not someone who wished to rule over it. Amara greeted him with her usual grace. "You are welcome on Viridia Prime. Tell me, Terran, why have you come here?" Terran bowed again. "I have traveled many worlds. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen peace grow and crumble. I do not seek power, Lady Amara. I seek purpose. I believe leadership is not about command, but about service. When I heard of your son's request, I thought perhaps my path had led me here for a reason. If I can help you, I will." His words were simple, yet they held weight. There was no pride in them, no attempt to impress. Amara tilted her head slightly, curious. She asked him about trade, about war, about diplomacy. His answers were not perfect speeches, but clear and thoughtful. He did not claim to know everything, but he showed the wisdom of listening, of learning before acting. Milo's eyes lit up as he listened. Terran did not try to outshine his mother, nor did he try to please her with false promises. He spoke with honesty, and Milo could see that honesty reaching Amara as well. For the first time since the search had begun, he saw his mother lean forward, her interest genuine. After the meeting, when Terran had been shown to the guest quarters, Milo turned eagerly to his mother. "Mother, what do you think of him?" Amara's expression was thoughtful. "He is different. He does not boast, and he does not bend. He carries calm in his words. That is rare. But, Milo, it is too soon to say. We must see him in action, not just in words." Milo nodded, though his heart was already stirring with hope. Something told him that Terran was not like the others. The very next day, the galaxy tested this new arrival. A distress call reached the council from a nearby colony. A rogue fleet of raiders had attacked, threatening to destroy settlements and take captives. The council gathered in haste, voices rising in panic. Some urged sending fleets of warships, others demanded immediate negotiations. Amara listened, her face calm but serious. She needed to make a decision quickly. The fate of thousands depended on it. It was then that Terran stepped forward quietly. "May I speak?" he asked. The counselors turned in surprise. Some frowned, questioning why a newcomer dared to interrupt. But Amara nodded. "Speak." Terran looked around the chamber. "If you send warships, the raiders will scatter, and they will strike again elsewhere. If you only negotiate, they will think you are weak. The answer is not force alone, nor talk alone. Send a small, swift defense fleet to protect the colony, but at the same time, send envoys to the raiders' leaders. Show them you can defend your people, but also show them a path to peace if they are willing. Strength with compassion, that is the way forward." The chamber fell quiet. The counselors looked at one another. Slowly, some began to nod. It was a plan that balanced defense with diplomacy, firm but not cruel. Amara studied Terran, her eyes thoughtful. She gave the order to follow his advice. Soon, reports came back from the colony. The defense fleet had protected the people, and the envoys had opened talks with the raider leaders. For the first time in years, there was hope of peace in that troubled region. The council praised Amara for her decision, but Milo knew the idea had come from Terran. He looked at the man with admiration. This was what he had dreamed of, someone who stood beside his mother, someone who strengthened her with wisdom and care. That evening, as the sun set in golden light over Viridia Prime, Amara spoke quietly to Milo. "You were right, my son. Sometimes the right person arrives without riches or promises. Terran may truly be different." Milo's heart leapt with joy. He looked out at the stars, feeling a warmth he had not felt since his father's passing. Perhaps, just perhaps, his dream was beginning to come true. The success of the colony rescue brought new respect for Amara and her council. But among the people of Viridia Prime, whispers spread quickly. Many had noticed that the newcomer, Terran, had guided the plan. Some questioned his role, while others praised his wisdom. Milo listened to the whispers but kept his focus on what mattered. He had seen the truth with his own eyes. His mother had made the final choice, but Terran's guidance had been the spark. Milo felt proud, not only because the colony had been saved, but because his mother now had someone beside her who could share the weight of leadership. Yet peace in the galaxy never lasted long. Only a week after the colony incident, another crisis struck. This time, it was closer to home. Reports came from the border stations of Viridia Prime. Strange ships had been spotted moving in the shadows of space. They did not respond to signals, nor did they show signs of belonging to any known government. When patrol ships approached, the mysterious fleet scattered like birds, only to reappear days later near another station. The council gathered in the main chamber, voices full of tension. Some demanded a massive fleet be sent to crush the intruders. Others feared a war too soon after the raider conflict. Still others insisted on waiting, hoping the strange ships would vanish on their own. Amaro listened carefully, her face calm though her eyes were sharp with thought. Beside her, Terran stood quietly, his arms crossed. Milo sat near the edge of the chamber, watching both his mother and Terran closely. He sensed that another test was coming. Finally, Amara turned to Terran. "You have traveled many worlds. Tell us, what do you think?" Terran spoke slowly, his voice steady. "If they are testing your borders, it means they are searching for weakness. Sending a massive fleet will show strength, but it will also escalate fear. Doing nothing will invite further probing. I suggest something different. Let us send scouts in silence. Learn who these strangers are, learn what they want, and then act with wisdom. Strength is not only in power, but in knowing your enemy before they strike." The counselors murmured among themselves. Some agreed, others doubted. But Amara nodded. "Then we will send scouts. We must learn before we choose war." Within hours, swift ships slipped quietly into the blackness of space. Days passed with little word, and the tension across the planet grew. Milo walked the halls of the council building, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing on everyone. Even his mother seemed restless, though she did not show it openly. At last, the scouts returned. Their report stunned the council. The mysterious fleet was not an invading army. It was a collection of wandering ships, refugees from a world that had been destroyed by a dying sun. They were searching for a place to survive, but their fear had made them secretive. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some councillors demanded the refugees be turned away, fearing they would drain Viridia Prime's resources. Others insisted they must be welcomed, as it was the duty of a strong world to help the weak. Amaro listened, her expression unreadable. Then she rose to speak. "We are leaders not only of Viridia Prime but of the galaxy. If we turn away those in need, we are no better than the raiders we defeated. These people seek only survival. We will welcome them, but we will also guide them, helping them settle on a new world where they can rebuild. That is our path." Her words brought silence, then slow nods of agreement. Still, Milo noticed how carefully Terran watched the counselors. Later, when the chamber was empty, Milo asked him, "Why did you look at them like that?" Terran smiled faintly. "Because true leadership is tested not only in crisis but in how others react to decisions. Some agreed today, but fear will return. Fear is a shadow that follows leaders always. Your mother shines bright, but shadows will try to dim her. She must always stand firm." Milo thought about those words long into the night. He began to see leadership not just as speeches and decisions, but as battles against unseen fears and doubts. The days that followed were busy. Amara and Terran worked side by side to organize supplies for the refugees. Ships carried food, water, and medicine. Scouts helped guide the refugee fleet to a safe star system where new homes could be built. Amaro led with wisdom, but Terran's quiet strength supported her every step. When disagreements arose, he helped calm tempers. When problems seemed impossible, he reminded the council to think with patience. Milo watched them together, and something in his heart grew lighter. He saw how his mother's shoulders seemed less heavy when Terran stood beside her. He saw how she sometimes smiled when Terran made a quiet remark. He saw trust beginning to form, like the first green shoots rising after winter. But even as hope grew, another test arrived. Not everyone on Viridia Prime agreed with helping the refugees. A group of merchants gathered in protest, arguing that their own people would suffer if resources were shared. They shouted outside the council building, demanding Amara change her decision. Milo stood by a window, watching the crowd with uneasy eyes. He turned to his mother. "They are angry. What if they turn against you?" Amara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Leaders must listen, even to anger. A leader who ignores the voice of the people cannot guide them." She walked calmly into the plaza where the merchants gathered. Terran followed at her side, silent but present. The crowd quieted as Amara raised her hand. "You fear that helping others will weaken us," she said, her voice clear. "But strength does not vanish when shared. It grows. These refugees will not drain us. They will become our allies, our friends. One day, they may stand beside us in defense of the galaxy. If we push them away, we gain nothing but enemies. If we help them, we gain partners for the future." The crowd murmured. Some still frowned, but many nodded slowly. Terran then stepped forward, his calm presence steadying the air. "I have seen worlds that turned away the weak. In time, those worlds fell, for no one stood beside them when their own storms came. Amara is right. Compassion is not weakness. It is the truest strength." The plaza fell silent. Milo watched as anger slowly faded from the faces of the merchants. Not all were convinced, but enough left quietly, their protests dimmed. That night, Milo sat with his mother and Terran in the quiet garden. The stars glimmered above, and the soft glow of flowers surrounded them. Milo looked at them both and felt a warmth he had longed for. "You worked together," he said softly. "You faced trials, and you stood strong. Maybe this is what I wished for all along." Amara looked at Terran, her expression gentle. "Perhaps," she said. "But trials will not end. We must be ready for what comes next." Terran met her gaze, his eyes calm and steady. "Then we will face them together." The days after the refugee crisis passed into weeks, and Viridia Prime slowly returned to its rhythm. Trade routes opened again, the council chambers quieted, and people found comfort in ordinary life. Yet for Milo, everything felt different. He noticed changes not in the city around him, but in his mother and Terran. Amara no longer seemed so alone in her work. Where once she carried every burden in silence, now she often discussed matters with Terran. They would walk together in the gardens, or sit at the long table of maps and star charts, their voices soft but steady. Sometimes they disagreed, yet their disagreements never became harsh. Instead, they listened to one another, weighing ideas carefully until they found common ground. Milo liked to watch these moments. He could see how his mother's shoulders seemed lighter when she was with Terran. And he noticed something else, small things that others might not pay attention to. He saw the way his mother smiled more often, sometimes even laughing gently at something Terran said. He saw the way Terran looked at Amara, not with pride or ambition, but with respect and quiet admiration. One evening, a messenger arrived from a distant world. The planet known as Kethera, home to the Crystal Cities, was facing unrest. A trade dispute had turned into open conflict, and the leaders of Kethera had requested Amara's presence to mediate. It was a dangerous journey, for the planet's skies were often stormy, and its factions unpredictable. Still, Amara agreed to go. She believed peace must always be sought, even in difficult places. Terran chose to accompany her, and Milo insisted on coming as well. Though his mother hesitated, she finally agreed, knowing Milo had already shown wisdom beyond his years. Their ship cut through the black sea of stars until the glowing towers of Kethera came into view. The planet shone with beauty, its surface lit by cities made of crystal that reflected sunlight like rivers of fire. But as the ship drew closer, the signs of unrest were clear. Smoke rose in some districts, and patrol craft circled the skies with weapons ready. Upon landing, Amara was greeted by representatives of both sides. They bowed respectfully, yet their voices carried tension. Each accused the other of greed and dishonesty. Milo felt the air heavy with suspicion. For 2 days, Amara worked tirelessly, speaking with both factions, listening to their concerns, and searching for a path toward peace. Terran stood beside her during every meeting, offering advice when asked and silence when not. Milo observed how his mother and Terran seemed to balance one another. Amara's voice carried authority, while Terran's carried calm. Together, they created space for dialogue where anger had once ruled. Yet peace is never simple. On the third day, as the Council of Kethera gathered in a tall crystal hall, a sudden explosion shook the ground. Windows cracked, and alarms filled the air. Outside, shouts echoed through the city. A group of extremists had set off charges, hoping to shatter any chance of negotiation. The guards rushed forward, confusion spreading through the hall. Milo felt his heart race as smoke drifted in. He clutched his mother's hand tightly. Amara's face was calm, but her eyes burned with determination. Terran stepped in front of them, his voice firm. "We must move quickly," he said. "Panic will only give them what they want. Stay close." Together, they guided the council members through a side passage, away from the smoke and toward safety. At one point, part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking their path. Amara looked at the frightened counselors and then at her son. She began to move the heavy stones herself, but Terran stopped her. "Let me," he said. His hands pressed against the fallen slabs, his strength steady and sure. Piece by piece, he cleared the way, never faltering, even as dust filled the air. Amara helped where she could, but Milo noticed how carefully Terran shielded her, placing himself in danger first. When at last they reached the outer plaza, soldiers rushed to secure the area. The extremists had been driven back, but the damage was done. Many leaders doubted whether peace was possible after such violence. That night, as the city tried to recover, Amara sat quietly in her chamber. Milo sat nearby, his eyes filled with worry. She had led with courage, but the weight of the day pressed heavily on her. Terran entered, carrying a tray of water and fruit. He placed it gently on the table and sat across from her. For a moment, no words were spoken. The silence felt like a shield around them. Finally, Terran spoke. "You held them together today. Without your voice, they would have scattered in fear." Amara sighed softly. "And yet the extremists still broke through. Perhaps peace is beyond reach." Terran shook his head. "Peace is never a single moment. It is built piece by piece, like a bridge across a wide river. Today was one stone laid in that bridge. Tomorrow, there will be another." Amara looked at him, her eyes softening. Milo watched the exchange, feeling something stir in his chest. He had heard many leaders speak fine words, but none spoke to his mother the way Terran did. His words were not meant for the crowd, but for her heart. The next day, the negotiations resumed. To everyone's surprise, the factions agreed to continue talking, moved by Amara's unshaken resolve. Slowly, an agreement was shaped, promising fair trade and protection for both sides. When the council finally signed the pact, the crystal towers of Kethera glowed brighter than ever, as if the planet itself approved. On the journey home, the ship was quiet. Milo sat by the window, watching the stars flow past. Behind him, his mother and Terran spoke softly. They shared memories of the journey, laughter at small moments, and quiet gratitude for survival. Milo turned to watch them, and for the first time, he allowed himself to imagine what life could be if this bond continued to grow. He thought of the nights when his mother worked alone, her eyes full of weariness. He thought of how different she looked now, with Terran by her side. Strong, yes, but also lighter, freer, as if she no longer carried every burden alone. That night, as Milo closed his eyes, he whispered to himself, "This is what I wanted. A partner for her, and a father for me." He did not know what the future would bring, but he knew one truth: the bond between Amara and Terran was growing, and with it grew hope not just for them, but for the galaxy itself. The return from Kethera was calm, but Amara knew that peace never lasted long in the galaxy. When their ship landed on Viridia Prime, messengers were already waiting outside the docking bay. Their robes bore the golden mark of the Galactic Council, the highest body of leaders from every world. "The Council requests your presence," one of them said. "A gathering has been called. Matters of leadership must be decided." Amara exchanged a glance with Terran, then looked at Milo. She could see the worry in her son's eyes, though he stayed silent. She rested her hand gently on his shoulder. "Do not fear. Whatever they ask, we will face it together." The council chambers were vast, a circular hall where leaders from dozens of worlds sat in tiered seats. The air shimmered with the hum of translation devices. Statues of old guardians lined the walls, a reminder of the galaxy's long and troubled history. At the center stood a single raised platform, where Amara was summoned to stand. The speaker of the council, an elder with silver scales and a voice that carried through the hall, addressed her. "Amara of Viridia, you have led with strength during times of unrest. You have brought aid to refugees, calmed the storms of Kethera, and restored hope where hope was lost. Yet the galaxy still trembles. Our people demand not only a queen, but a guide who can unite every star system. The question before us is simple: are you ready to stand as more than a ruler of one world?" The chamber grew quiet. Every leader leaned forward to hear her reply. Amara lifted her chin, her voice steady. "I do not seek power. I seek only to serve, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. If the galaxy believes I am worthy to guide, then I will not refuse the call." A murmur spread across the chamber. The speaker raised a hand to silence it. Then his eyes moved to Terran. "But leadership is not a burden carried alone. It is a partnership. No ruler can guide the galaxy without someone to stand beside them. We have watched closely, and it is clear that Terran of Earth has grown close to you. Before we decide your future, we must know if he is worthy to share this path." Milo's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Terran, whose calm expression never wavered. Terran stepped forward, bowing his head slightly. "I do not claim greatness," Terran said. "I am only a soldier who once wandered the stars with no home. But I believe in Amara. I have seen her courage, her compassion, and her strength. If she allows it, I will stand at her side, not above her, not in her place, but beside her always." The speaker's eyes narrowed. Words are easy. The council does not trust words alone. We demand proof. A test of loyalty and wisdom. If you pass, we will bless your bond. If you fail, the galaxy will know you are not fit to stand at her side. The hall filled with whispers again. Milo clenched his fists, his chest tightening. Why must they always test, always doubt? But he knew this was the way of the council. Nothing was ever given freely. That night, in their private chamber, Amara, Terran, and Milo sat together. The glow of the stars outside lit their faces. Milo broke the silence first. "It is not fair. You have already proved yourself. Why must you be tested again?" Terran smiled gently at the boy. "Fair or not, this is their way. And perhaps it is right. If I am to share your mother's path, I must prove myself not only to her, but to all who follow her." Amara's eyes softened, though her voice was firm. "I do not need their test to know who you are. But if this is the price, we will face it together." The next morning, the council gathered again. The speaker announced the trial. "Terran of Earth, you will face 3 challenges. The first will test your courage. The second will test your wisdom. The third will test your heart. Only if you succeed in all will you be judged worthy." The first trial took place in the Arena of Echoes, a vast chamber where illusions shaped by ancient machines created visions of fear. As Terran stepped inside, the walls shimmered, and suddenly he stood on a battlefield from his past. Smoke, fire, and the cries of the wounded filled the air. Shadows of enemies advanced, their weapons raised. Milo gasped from the viewing gallery, but Amara placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Watch him," she whispered. "Do not fear." Terran stood firm, refusing to strike at the illusions. Instead, he knelt beside the shadows of the fallen, speaking words of comfort as if they were real. When the last shadow faded, the arena fell silent. The council declared he had passed the test of courage, for he had faced fear not with violence, but with compassion. The second trial took place in the Hall of Mirrors, where endless reflections showed possible futures. In each reflection, Terran saw himself holding power, some as a king, some as a tyrant, some as a leader adored, others as one feared. A voice echoed through the hall. "Choose one reflection to become your truth." Terran looked at them all, then turned away. "I do not seek to choose my own future. My path is to walk beside Amara and Milo, wherever it leads. That is enough." The mirrors shattered, and the council declared he had passed the test of wisdom. At last came the third trial, the test of the heart. Terran was led into a chamber where 2 doors stood. Behind one was Amara. Behind the other was Milo. The council's voice spoke. "You may save only one. The other will be lost. Choose." Milo's breath caught. He looked at his mother, fear rising in his chest. How could anyone choose? But Amara's gaze never wavered. She believed in him. Terran stood silently for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "I refuse. There is no choice. A man who abandons one to save another has already failed. If they cannot both live, then I will stay and share their fate." The doors burst open. Amara and Milo rushed forward, unharmed. The council chamber filled with stunned silence. The speaker rose slowly, his voice carrying weight. "You have passed. For the heart that refuses to sacrifice love is the heart most fit to guide. The leaders rose one by one, their voices joining in agreement. The bond between Amara and Terran was blessed by the council. Milo's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but of joy. At last, his wish was no longer just a dream. His mother had found a partner, and he had found the father he longed for. Yet even in this moment of triumph, Amara knew the road ahead would not be easy. The galaxy was still full of unrest. But for the first time in many years, she felt she would not walk that road alone. The decision of the council spread quickly across the galaxy. On every world, from the icy moons to the desert colonies, the news was carried by messengers and transmission beams. Amara had been confirmed as the leader chosen to guide all star systems into a new age, and Terran had been accepted as her partner. For some, it was a moment of celebration. For others, it brought doubt and suspicion. But no one could deny that history had shifted. Back on Viridia Prime, the city's grand plaza filled with citizens. Lights shimmered across the towers, and banners of peace were raised. Children sang in clear voices, and old guardians stood in shining armor to honor the moment. At the center of the plaza stood Amara, Terran, and Milo. Milo's small hand clutched his mother's gown as the crowd cheered. He had dreamed of this day, though he had never been sure it would truly come. Now it was here, and he felt pride rising in his heart. Amara raised her voice, calm and steady. People of the galaxy, today is not about crowns or titles. It is about hope. We have been divided by fear and greed for too long. But from this day forward, we will walk together as one family among the stars. Let this be the beginning of a new dawn. The crowd roared, voices echoing across the plaza. Yet Amara knew that words alone would not bind the galaxy. Promises had to be proven through action, and unity had to be built step by step. After the ceremony ended, the three returned to the palace. The grand hall felt less heavy than before, as if the walls themselves carried new light. Milo skipped ahead, his laughter bouncing off the stone columns. Amara and Terran followed slowly. "You spoke well," Terran said. "But the road ahead will be difficult." Amara glanced at him, a faint smile on her lips. "I know. But I no longer walk it alone." That evening, Milo could not sleep. He climbed out of bed and padded softly through the hallways until he found his mother and Terran sitting in the garden. The night air was cool, and the stars shone brightly above. Fireflies danced among the flowers, glowing softly. Milo sat beside them. "Will it always be like this now?" he asked. "Will people always listen and follow?" Amara placed a hand on his cheek. "There will always be those who resist. But with patience and courage, even the hardest hearts can change. We must keep trying." Terran added, "And remember, Milo, unity is not built by leaders alone. It is built by people like you, those who believe in kindness and refuse to give up." Milo nodded slowly, his eyes full of wonder. He had wanted a father, and now he saw that Terran was not only a father to him but also a guide to many. The next weeks were filled with work. Delegations from distant worlds arrived daily. Some came with open hands, eager to join the vision of unity. Others came with clenched fists, still angry and suspicious. Amara met them all with patience, listening to their fears, while Terran stood beside her as a steady presence. Milo found himself watching closely, learning quietly. He sat near the back of the chambers, studying how his mother balanced firmness with compassion, how Terran spoke only when needed, and how their voices together carried more weight than either alone. One day, a messenger arrived with troubling news. A faction on the edge of the galaxy had begun to rise, claiming that Amara's leadership was weak and that only force could bring order. They had gathered ships and soldiers, and their words threatened to spark another war. The council grew restless, voices arguing in anger. Some called for immediate battle. Others demanded retreat. But Amara stood, her voice clear. We will not answer fear with fear. We will go to them, not as conquerors but as neighbors. If they still choose war, then we will defend ourselves. But first, we will give them the chance for peace. Terran's hand brushed hers under the table. It was a small gesture, unseen by others, but it gave her strength. Milo, watching from his seat, felt his heart swell. The journey to the distant faction was long and tense. Their ships were met with fleets bristling with weapons, their leaders full of suspicion. Yet Amara and Terran walked into the council chamber without hesitation. Milo followed, small but unafraid. The opposing leader, a stern figure with dark eyes, sneered. You speak of peace, but peace is weakness. Only strength commands respect. Amara did not flinch. Strength without compassion is not leadership. It is tyranny. If you truly wish to command respect, show your people a path beyond fear. For hours they debated. Anger rose and fell like tides. At last, Terran stepped forward. His voice was quiet, yet it carried. I was once like you. I thought strength was enough. But I learned that standing alone leaves you hollow. Standing together gives you a strength no army can match. Join us, and you will not lose power. You will gain allies who will fight beside you, not against you. The chamber was silent. Slowly, the stern leader lowered his gaze. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps unity is not weakness after all. When they returned to Viridia Prime, the people greeted them with relief and joy. Another storm had been calmed, another path of peace opened. That night, in the quiet of the palace, Milo curled up beside his mother and Terran. He looked up at them and whispered, I asked you to marry my mother and help lead the galaxy. You both did it? Thank you. Amara's eyes grew soft with tears, and Terran's hand rested gently on Milo's shoulder. We are a family now, Terran said. And together, we will guide this galaxy, one step at a time. The stars above seemed brighter than ever, as if the universe itself approved. For the first time in many years, Amara felt hope not only for the galaxy, but for her own heart.